Good morning, Owls. So for this week's grammar, we're going to be looking at pronouns. Now for this, I've, for the first time, recorded over a PowerPoint. So when you get the PowerPoint, all of the slides will have this audio recording talking about the content. So you can either play it as a slideshow, and hopefully the audio will match up with what you're seeing. Well, a pronoun is a word that replaces a noun or a noun phrase within a sentence. So what we mean is that it's a word, often very short, that goes instead of a noun, so we don't need to repeat it, and it makes the sentence flow a lot better and makes your writing just sound less clunky and more polished. So we'll look at a couple of examples of how we... So if I wrote the sentence, the dog wagged the dog's tail, you should be able to hear that that doesn't sound right because we've repeated the noun. We've got the dog twice in it. A pronoun stops us having to do that. So have a look at the sentence. What could we put in there that would make that sentence flow a lot better? The dog wagged. We could say the dog wagged its tail. Now, its is an example of a pronoun that goes instead of the dog the second time, and it just makes our sentence flow a lot easier. Have a look at this second one. We've got Mary rode Mary's bike to the park. Now again, we don't need that second Mary, and we can replace her name with a pronoun. So have a think, Mary rode bike to the park. What pronoun could we use in there? We could say Mary rode her bike to the park, and her again is an example of a pronoun. We could say Mrs. Doggett was cross because she couldn't find her keys. So she and her, two different types of pronoun that we're going to be looking at in a second, that replace having to repeat the noun Mrs. Doggett all of those times. Now hopefully pronouns are very much revision and just remind. So when you're making your notes, I've split the page like this into quarters. It's up to you how you do it. You can do them in different sections, but either way, we need 4 sections for personal pronouns, possessive pronouns, reflexive pronouns, and relative pronouns. So before we start, have a look at those 4 names. Okay, so we're going to start with personal pronouns. Now, a personal pronoun is probably the most common one, and it replaces the name of that person or object. So rather than Mr. Lee jumped up and down, I might say I jumped up and down. Rather than saying Mrs. Doggett went for a run. The second type of pronoun we're going to look at is the word possessive pronoun. And that word possessive, you can see the word possess, as if you own something. And that's what it means. A possessive pronoun shows that something belongs to someone or something. So rather than saying Mr. Lee's bag, Okay, the third type of pronoun is a reflexive pronoun. Now that sounds quite scary. It may be a word you've not heard of before, but actually, if you have a look at all of the endings to these reflexive pronouns, you can see there's a massive clue for whenever we're using one. Finally, we have a relative pronoun. Now, relative pronouns we've already used a lot whenever we've been writing a relative clause and think about whether it's an embedded relative clause or one that goes on the end. We use a relative pronoun within those, and it's those key words, that who, that which, that, whose, and we've got this whom. So this is the first thing to have a look at. There are 4 sentences here. Each of them need a pronoun within. So can you read it carefully? Have a think, what pronoun could go inside? And what type of pronoun is it? Is it personal, possessive, reflexive, or relative? So read through those 4 sentences. So these pronouns can go into this sentence to make them flow better. I don't need any help. I can do it myself. And the key clue there, self at the end, tells us it's a reflexive pronoun. Paul and Lucy invited their friends to the party. The friends belong to them. So, key grammar for this week. We need to be able to choose a pronoun to use it in a sentence so that the sentence makes sense. And this is the bit now, can I tell which of the 4 types of pronouns we've looked at am I using? Now we're going to be using this throughout the week